Today's topic is 1.3, rounding off whole numbers. So we're going to learn how to round numbers based on something called rounding up or rounding down. Rounding is something we do every day, and sometimes we call it estimating. So how much time does it take you to get somewhere? That's always approximate, maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. How much money do you have in your wallet or purse? If you're like me, you probably have about 5 cents. The size of a room or building, we can just judge that based on our experience. Temperature outside, maybe it's about 10 degrees. Height of a tree, 3 meters. Weight of an object. Maybe you know how heavy you are exactly, maybe you just know approximately how heavy you are. So there's lots of times where we don't need to be absolutely accurate. If we look at going from Edmonton to Vancouver, it's about 1,600 kilometers. I don't know exactly how much it is. I could look on Google, but it's acceptable for me to say that. So it's approximately, and whenever we use the word like about, that's how we know. And a fancy symbol for approximately is this little guy. It's like an equal sign, but a bit wavy. So we're not quite sure. So when we round numbers, it means that we're trying to find another number that's close by it. If we want to look at the beginnings of roundings, we can use number lines. So if we see the number 46, and we see where it is relative to the number 40 and the number 50, we can see that it's inching ever so closer to 50. So it's closer to 50 than to 40, so 46 rounds to 50. It's going to round up to the nearest tens place. For example, 2, it works much the same way. We're rounding this time to the hundreds place. So if we look at 641 and we made a number line where we're going up by tens, we could see that the 641 is closer to 600 than it is to 700. So it's going to round down to 600. For example, 3, we have a larger number into the thousands, but if we want to round it to the nearest hundred, what we can do is make 5,400 and go up by tens. And we've got 5,478, and we can see that it's going up to closer to 5,500. And pardon me, we're going up by 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on. Okay. So when we look at number lines, it can help us understand because it's a good visual, but if we're going to be doing number lines all the time, it's quite slow. So we're going to look at a rule that's really helpful. This rule is not in your workbook, but it's called the rule of fives. If the digit to the right of the one being rounded is greater than 5, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we're going to be rounding up. If the digit to the right of the one being rounded is less than 5, so it's a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, or a 0, we're going to be rounding down. So let's start with this. We're going to round to certain place values. So what we're going to do is a little system that I like to use, and you won't see it everywhere on the internet or anything, and the book is going to be a bit different than me. But what we want to do is find the place where we're rounding. So sometimes they say tens place, sometimes they say nearest 10. So all that means is it's the tens place. So that's going to be right here. So I'm going to underline the tens place, and then I'm going to look to the right, and I'm going to put a little dot above because the one that I have the dot on is my decider. That's what's going to decide if I'm rounding up or down. Now remember, if we're rounding up, the decider is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. If we're rounding down, it's a 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0. So we're rounding to the tens place. We've got a 7 to the right. The 7 is going to round up. It's going to push. So this 6 over here, the 600, that doesn't change. But the 5 gets pushed up to a 6, and the number that you have the dot on and any other numbers to the right is going to become a 0. So 657 round to the tens place is 660. Let's keep going with this. The nearest hundred means the hundreds place. So we underline the hundreds place. We look next door to the right. Here we have a 3. The 3 is the decider. The 3 is going to round down. So what does that mean when we round down? It means that nothing happens to this 4. It doesn't get pushed up. It doesn't get pushed down though. It's just called rounding down. So the 5,000 stays the same. The 400 stays the same. And the 3 and the 6 become zeros. 5,400. For our nearest thousands, we're going to our thousands place. We look next door. We've got a 7. The 7 is deciding. That's going to push up. So the 8 stays the same. This 7 now gets pushed up to an 8. We get 88,000. The 7, the 4, and the 9 all become zeros. 87,749 is closer to 88,000 than it is to 87,000. So if you think of it in terms of money too, it can really help. Front end rounding is where we round to the furthest left. It doesn't matter how big or small the number is. Front end rounding is rounding to the front of the number. We still follow the same rules. We're going to look at the 3. The 3 is not strong enough to push this 2 up. The 2 stays the same. The 3 becomes a 0, and everything else. 23,906 is closer to 20,000 than it is to 30,000. Couple more, tens place. That's right here. Now, what are we going to do here? We've got an 8. That's going to push the 9 up. That 9 is going to become a 10. So what we do is we carry the 1 over and we add it to the digit next door. So this 9,000 stays the same. The 0 gets added to a 1. The 9 becomes a 0 and the 8 becomes a 0. 9,098 is almost 9,100 if we talk about money. So that's how that one works. Be careful when you have 9s. And then the last one here is a front end rounding. We're going to round right to the front. We look next door. The 8 is going to push the 6. The 6 becomes a 7 and everything else becomes zeros. The 8 becomes a 0. 608 becomes 0. 409 becomes 0. 68,608,409 is closer to 70 million than it is to 60 million. So that's a little bit about rounding. Now it's your turn to try the exercises.